Guys, it's great seeing you. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Because I always feel like it's tradition, especially when the Junos come around, because you guys have been nominated and winners so many times. And so for me, every year is a tradition doing that. Not getting a chance to talk to you and see you last year was not pleasant. So I got to ask you, how are you both doing during the pandemic? And what area of the world are you guys at right now?
Well, we're at our house in Toronto, but yeah, just hearing you talk about that, it seems like a lifetime ago when we were getting ready to leave for the airport to go to the Junos, and then of course we all got the call that it was canceled, and basically everything was canceled, life was canceled, everything was shut down, and life has been very different from that point onwards.
Yeah, well, you guys got the call before you left. I got the call while being on the plane.
Oh
So,
no.
oh yeah. So it was literally land, walk over to the kiosk, get my ticket to get back to Toronto. And let me tell you something, there's no coat in the world warm enough when you're in the winter Saskatoon. It was freezing up there. I didn't even step out of the airport. I actually sat by the doors and I could feel the ice cold hit me going, what part of the world am I in? Because it was my first
Going
time.
back home.
Oh yeah, it was cold, but you know what? It was an experience, and we're all still experiencing things. And what good experiences is when folks are releasing new music, is what you guys have done. Congratulations on that. Before we get into this new, cool, and I can call psychedelic new single, how has it been for you guys to record music during COVID, especially being in Toronto and knowing one moment things are shut down, things are open, you only allowed to be around 10 people, oh, only three? How has that worked out for you guys?
Well, luckily we share a bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one perk.
I know a lot of artists just basically have to shut their entire existence as a band down because they don't exist unless there's 10 people in the room. So we're lucky that we can exist at, in large capacity as two people. I mean, there are people out there who prefer it when there's nobody around us, when it's just the two of us, whether we're making music, like, singing sort of with a couple of guitars or what have you. But when the pandemic hit, I'm sure you heard from a lot of other artists who were like, they had full dockets of tour dates across Europe or America or Canada, and they had to cancel. So a lot of artists were like in really bad shape. Like all of a sudden there's, 25% of their annual revenue just gone in an instant, or, a month and a half of tour dates vanished. We didn't have any tour dates booked because we were planning to record, and we were planning to record at least one, if not two records. So that's the first answer, is that we didn't have to wipe the slate clean because we were just planning to sort of hunker down and record. But then, we were allowed to get back together under certain circumstances in studios at a distance with a limited number of people, we just set up our recording schedule in that way. So, it's like, okay, well, how many people can we have in this space? We can have 5 people. Okay, that's an engineer. That's Melissa. Now I guess we have a drummer, and that's one more person. Who's it going to be? And we would find, it's going to be a piano player, and that's it. And so we just worked within the limitations of what was realistic and what was safe. And, I think about most of the music that I've always liked in my life, and it's usually defined in some capacity by its limitations. Like usually the music I like, or the artists I like, or the bands I like, they're not like, they can't do everything. They can usually do one or two things really well. And it's because they're not good at everything. They're good at what they're good at. And then they kind of suck at everything else. And that sweet spot is what makes it, like, that's a really cool sound. So I'm always looking for the opportunity to have one arm tied behind our backs, so that
Says
we can.
the guy who's actually good at everything.
Exactly.
We get into the studio and he's like playing everything.
No, I'm just curious though. The songs that we are blessed with right now, were these songs actually written before the pandemic or during the pandemic? Because as we know, the world, and we saw things differently before, and then we see things differently. And I've noticed a lot of artists who have written during the pandemic, they said, I would never written a song like this if it wasn't for what I was going through now.
Yeah, I think both are true in our case. We had a bunch of songs written before that we had planned to record, and then we wrote a ton. We wrote a ton of songs. Like this record, Strike Me Down, with the song Am I Just Gonna Stand Here While You Take My Girl Away. A lot of those songs were written in the studio during the very, very beginning of the pandemic, like this time last year, a little bit earlier than this time last year. We were in LA with Gus Van Gogh, and we're kind of like, what's going on? Like, are we allowed to go home? Are we getting on a plane? Are we allowed to get together? And so we wrote a lot of the songs together in studio. But this particular song, Am I Just Gonna Stand Here While You Take My Girl Away? I wrote that at 7 o'clock in the morning with my brothers. I was in Mexico with my brother a couple of years ago, and we'd had an all-nighter, and it was a big night. And how we were still awake is beyond me. But there we were at 7 in the morning as the sun's coming up, and we're in our little cabana. And I was like, hey, check it out. What do you think of this? And I just sang him that line. Am I just gonna stand here while you take my girl away? And he's like, oh, dude, it's great. It's fantastic. So there you go.
Okay, well, let's get right into this new single, because like I said, it's got that 60s groove. And the video itself, the psychedelic look. How did that all form together? Because I don't think I've ever heard you guys go into this in depth in music like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do have, that we're guilty on almost, even on our blues records. There's always a moment where we kind of reveal our Beatle fanaticism, even when it's not appropriate. They put it on a blues, sneak a little bit of like psychedelia into a blues record. We are guilty of doing that. So that's always been in the cards to some degree.
And we did do a few versions of this song, and the first version was quite different, and it was originally supposed to be on our record that came out in March, Modern Love, and then it didn't fit, and it wasn't like quite getting there, so we just put that song aside, and then we ended up working on it with Gus and with Like Minds, the duo in LA, and brought this kind of like psychedelic Beatles, Tame Impala kind of thing to it. And right away it was like, yes, this is it. I love it when a song finds its thing in the studio, because it doesn't always happen, but it really clicked.
And also that theme, like a question like that, a line like that, it has to be in the right package, in the right frame. Because I mean, it can be maudlin or saccharine or sad or pathetic, or it can be irreverent and disrespectful. Like there's really, I feel like the psychedelic treatment, and the video is part of that, like the playfulness of it, and the way it comes across, like that it had to come across a certain way for the emotion behind that to be authentic, because we could have missed it. We could have gotten it wrong.
Yeah. And
sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, but did you guys decide when you did the song, did you know you were going to do the video like this?
No, so Lyle Bell, who is a total genius, we love him. He does all of our videos and our photography and artwork. So him and Caitlin Veach came to us with this idea, and they actually built the set themselves, and it's made out of styrofoam and plywood and fake flowers, and they stayed up all night painting it, and it was quite the project. And then I had these like crazy hair extensions put in, and this kind of like silky robe that I'm wearing, and you're all in white, so it's kind of very culty from the get-go. Yeah. And it was such a fun video to make, because it was like right smack in the middle of like after a year in lockdown, basically, or I think it was like 8 months in, and we were all losing our minds. And we scheduled it at a time where we were able to go and shoot this video, and it was a very small crew, and we stood on the podium of this set that they had spent days building, and performed the song over and over again. But then they handed us sledgehammers, and we destroyed the set at the end, and we had confetti cannons and that we were letting off, and just smashing everything to smithereens, and picking up pieces of plywood and smashing it on the floor, and ripping the flowers to shreds. And oh my God, did that feel good after 8 months in lockdown. It's like, I want to smash stuff.
Well, here's the thing that I love, and I hope folks can see this. I want to try to show this, and I hope I may have too much light, so let me just sort of turn it this way.
There it is.
I'm just curious, because I love this picture. Okay. Absolutely love it. Is there a chance that this is going to be like a t-shirt or something, because it's been a long time since I've seen something like this, because I'm old school and I always love seeing the great artistic work like you see like Bat Out of Hell, the
Right.
cover of that album.
Mhm.
And just sitting there and just looking at everything. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking to see, are there little like secret things in this picture that I should be looking for? Those are the things I love. Like, is there anything secret that I'm missing out in this that you guys can give me a hint? Or like I said, is this going to be a shirt, something? Because you just can't have this and not, just
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hard to say. There's not as, I mean, the secrets buried. There's a lot of secrets buried in all three of these records that we're putting out. That's for sure. But I can't tell you what they are, because then I'd have to send somebody over to kill you. And I actually quite like you. That'd be terrible. But anybody who listens closely enough is going to figure it out, for one thing, or figure them out. But also, as a t-shirt, I mean, yes, we're going to exploit these images as much as we can, because I feel the same way you feel. Like I'm so excited by how cool stuff looks. So Melissa was mentioning Lyle Bell, who is he's our photographer. He's the graphic artist. He directed the video. He does our album covers. He's also the singer in a band called The Wet Secrets from Edmonton, Alberta, and they're very, very cool. He's a really, really cool guy, super, super talented. Any chance we can spend any time with him in any capacity, we take, because he's very inspiring. And he's done a lot of cool stuff around this record. So will it end up in a t-shirt? I expect it will. The other thing that whole psychedelic thing that you talk about, like just the way it looks, he actually had a kaleidoscopic lens that he put on the front of his camera. So it reproduced the image itself. So that's what's going on. There's actually like a kaleidoscope lens on the front of the camera that makes it do that. So when you watch the video, you can sort of see that kaleidoscopic effect. So that's really, he's literally holding onto the lens and spinning the kaleidoscope like you would, like when you're 6 years old looking through a kaleidoscope.
I gotta look at this again. Like, I'm so excited about this. So I'm curious, is there a chance that there could be some kind of, I don't know, mini movie, something, short film of you folks in this psychedelic world? Because I feel like there's something there, and there's something more, and there's a story to be told. Yet we're looking at, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band and whatever else. But I'm looking at just, there's something there where you guys maybe are playing yourselves, but maybe two other characters. Just there's something there. I don't know.
Oh, I love it. I love your ideas.
You line up Martin Scorsese and the funding. We will be there.
We'll be there with bells on.
Oh man. Okay, so I got to make sure I understand this. There's two albums. Like, there's already one album that's released, and there's another one being released, and there's like, so this is a trilogy that we're doing here.
So there's 3 records coming out this year. So we already released Modern Love. This record that you're talking about, Strike Me Down, is coming out in September, and then we have another record coming out after that.
Yeah, we prefer to think of it as a troika, which I believe is a Russian word, but
Troika.
Again, that is back to old school, because that's what the old time artists used to do in releasing singles and albums. Like, literally, a guy will have an album out, and then 2 months later there's another album out, and then 3 months later there's another album out. It makes me wonder, how many more songs in the vault do you guys have right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of
there
music.
are some. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it, I mean, when you consider, it's so boring for us to talk about bands like the Beatles, like as if enough hasn't been said about that stupid band, but who I love. But you look back at their catalogs, or we could talk about so many artists from, again, old school, whether we're talking about Stevie Wonder or the Rolling Stones. Putting out 2 or 3 records in a year wasn't that strange in 1968 or 1973. It's just like, that's kind of what you did. And so it's not, I'm reluctant to want to pat us on the back, like, oh, we must be geniuses for having that much material. Most artists have in the past and do. I think the reason that there's some reason that we do things differently today, and I think it probably has to do with marketing, where it's like, well, we need to spend 2 years preparing for the release of this package of 9 songs, then we need to spend 3 years touring it. So you just do that once every 5 years. And back in the day, it was kind of like, no, man, you do it every 6 months, because let's just keep recording and making things. We want to make stuff because it's cool. And so we tend to fall on that way of looking at the world. We do that in general anyway.
I think it's going back to that anyways, even the way that people release singles, there's always kind of like a stream of, you're always releasing something. And it wasn't that way, even just a few years ago. So I think it's kind of going back to that mentality.
Yeah.
And what you were saying earlier, and I think just to add to that, I think part of it has to do with the way we would buy and consume music, which was vinyl back then. So when you were in that record store and you were thumbing through, whether it be the 45s or the albums, and if you saw that album from that artist, and then you looked over and went, oh, they just released another one, you grabbed it immediately and you walked out. So
Sure.
my question is, will this be vinyl?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, I don't know how much we're allowed to disclose. I don't even know how much I'm entirely privy to, because the label's
okay.
being sneaky. The label's being sneaky with us, and they're planning something really, really cool. I know there's going to be vinyl. It might all come out as a trifecta trilogy, or troika, if you will, in one, all in one. But we're not sure. I'm not sure yet. They're actually not. We haven't seen the finished plans. But
yes, there will be vinyl.
Yes.
I see. I'm so happy that I'm wearing this.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
Because to me, this is all about old school, and I love what you guys have created. So again, so folks know so we have this. When is the next one coming out?
So right. So the Strike Me Down.
September 10th, I believe, is
Right.
the date.
Is the record.
Yeah, and we'll have a couple songs being released along the way. So right now, people can go check out the video for Am I Just Gonna Stand Here While You Take My Girl Away? And then we'll have another 1 or 2 songs coming out after that as well, before the record's released in September.
Fantastic. Now, because I am also a big fan of you guys over the holidays too, and this is the season to actually be working on Christmas music, I'm just wondering, are you guys working on Christmas music for the holiday season?
No, we are not. We did put out a Christmas record a couple years ago. So, we've been milking that every season. And it's actually been fun because it's all original. Well, it's mostly original songs. So we've had fun kind of like revisiting those songs every Christmas. But we're not in the Christmas mood right now, I don't think.
No, but you're right that this is the season to actually be doing it, because you don't start working on this in December, you start working on it in May or June. But it's interesting. That's a fun thing for us, because Christmas is so wholesome. It's such a, like, the holidays are such a wholesome time. And these records are more playful. Strike Me Down is definitely a playful record. Well, yeah, that record especially, and the single is very playful in its own way. But when we get into the headspace of Christmas, and especially with our record, with our Whitehorse Winter Classic, all of a sudden it feels almost kind of conservative, like, I don't know. And so it's interesting for us to sort of get back into that headspace, and we play those songs and kind of like let our ironic guard down and just kind of, be sincere with people around the holidays. Like,
embrace the sincerity.
Hug your children, have a drink with your friends, be nice to your family,
Wear a mask.
There you go. Exactly. Wear a mask while you're doing all that too, and get your shot when you get that chance too. Virtual performances. I know last year you guys did a couple of virtual performances. What's happening with 2021, especially with the summer, even though we do have things still closed? Is there any chance that when things are opening up, whether it be virtual performances, or are you guys looking at maybe in drive-ins when they're going to allow that?
We do have a couple things on the books this summer, I believe. And, you never know what to expect, if things are going to actually go ahead or not. But yeah, I mean, things have pretty much, they've been grinding to a halt for a year and a half now. And so there's not too much going on, but, we're ever present online. We have done a ton of virtual concerts, and we probably will do more. And we're posting songs all the time. We have a Patreon page, and we post a lot there as well. So
yeah, we're doing a Friday happy hour series last year, writing like virtual performances, live stream. And we also did a drive-in thing last year. This year, I think we're going to kind of be a little quieter this summer. We were hoping that the real world was coming back and we would go back on the road. So that was sort of, obviously that's not happening right now. But
it will happen.
It will happen,
of
course. And we'll be the first ones out. But I think in the meantime, we're going to sort of focus more of our attention on putting out these records, and maybe being a little bit quieter as far as live streams go.
Amazing. And I'll work on a Christmas album, a new one, because I love your Christmas songs. But anyways, did I say something? Remember if I did? one last question. There are so many bands out there and artists who are having a hard time and trying to get their names and voices out because they're still trying to learn through this new venture, these new platforms in this new world. Any advice that you can give them, because you guys seem to be navigating extremely well throughout all this?
Mm.
Oh,
God, well, that's nice to hear, because I feel like we're just trying to figure it out too.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that you always have a band with your wife.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you can swing that.
Bubble with your band members.
Yeah. I also recommend if you have children that you should have them 18 years apart so that your older kids can look after your younger kids so that you can go on tour. So that really helps. That's all I got.
Oh man, I know. Advice. It is a strange new world out there, and honestly, we're in the thick of it too, and we're trying to figure it out.
I would almost go as far as to say it's the young generation that needs to give us some advice, because there's a little bit of like, get off my lawn in like when we have to, like, all of a sudden we're on TikTok and we're making these TikTok videos, and it makes every fiber of my body is uncomfortable. I don't know how to do that. I'm so much too old for that. And yet I talk to my daughter Chloe, who's 24, and she's just rolling her eyes. She shrugs like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, just do it, just do it. And so I almost feel like the people who need to be giving the advice are young people who are actually able to interface with the world kind of the way we are right now, and it doesn't stress them out because it's just how they always live. So yeah. I think young people are going to, in some ways are going to fare better, and other ways are not, because their futures are not as clear.
Yeah, and I do have to say that going through all of this, the pandemic and the lockdown, being able to just pick up our guitars and do what we do was very useful for us.
Yeah.
So that was a reminder that, like, oh, when you strip away the technology of making music or performing music, I mean, we had the technology to deliver the music to people sitting in their living rooms. But it was a reminder that, like, oh, we can just pick up our guitar and do what we do and play our songs,
right.
Regardless of like production or sounds coming out of laptops or whatever, So we were very pleased with ourselves about that. It was like, okay, we can pull this off with very little.
Well, the irony there is that on one hand, this is a time where people who are best set up to take advantage of technology will do the best. On the other hand, people who've taken time to actually learn how to play instruments the old school way will also do really well. So I don't know which is the thing. I think it's both. Like, I think people who are really tech savvy are gonna make out like bandits, and people like us who are able to just sit down and, like, be folk dorks are also going to do well.
I absolutely agree with you. And with the TikTok thing, again, I agree with you there also. I've got TikTok, but I haven't posted. I think I've had it now for 6 months. I haven't posted a thing because I want folks to hear this, and I'll tell you this really quick story. Sean Desmond actually posted this, where he said he went into a store, and the woman who owned the store, her daughter was there, and the woman said the daughter didn't know who Sean Desmond was, and she said, "Hey, he's somebody very famous." And the daughter said, "Oh, are you on TikTok?" And
oh my God!
Basically saying, "Are you famous because you're on TikTok?" And Sean just kind of like looked and kind of like.
Yeah.
That's our new version of fame, I guess.
That's it. It's like you said, all those elements you said, and then we got to take in the new elements that the new school have, like TikTok and the other ones that are bursting on the scenes.
Yeah.
That'll get us through.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you again so much for this interview. Thank you for the music. Thank you for bringing that old school back in. I got to get, when that goes up as a t-shirt, that picture, I definitely have to get that for my.
All right. Okay. We're on it.
Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for the interview, and you guys be safe.
Thank you. Take care.